While it is great to be successful, it is equally worthy to bring along others with you so that our communities and our world continues to become a better place for all of us. For it is in giving we receive. Thank you.
Dr. Roy Wilson was a jack of all trades. He was a husband, father, grandfather, teacher, politician, volunteer, and friend, just to name a few. While Roy Wilson's life was cut short, he achieved more in his lifetime than an average lifetime times 3. Roy graduated from the University of Alberta with a Bachelor and Master of Education, as well as a PhD. He taught at schools across Western Canada before arriving in Medicine Hat in 1973. This was the start of his 30-year teaching career at Medicine Hat College, instructing both Canadian history and teacher education. The college chose Roy as the recipient of an honorary baccalaureate at last year's convocation. He was one of the first people within Medicine Hat College to receive the award. In 1980, Roy was elected as a school board trustee in Medicine Hat. He's the longest-serving trustee in the city's history. Roy also served as president with the Alberta and Canadian School Boards Associate. His mountain of accomplishments is comparable to the amount of respect his family, friends, and colleagues had for him. While Roy had many admirable traits that his family and friends took note of, a few key qualities were obvious to all. One would be Roy's love of research. In 18 months, he wrote a book on the history of School District 76.
The journey of doing this history over the last 18 months involved reading 125 years of school board minutes. I don't know if you've tried reading school board minutes.
He had an insatiable passion for history and for research. He researched, well, that's why he was a good student, because he just researched all the time. He'd get up every morning at 5:30 and still read his scholarly periodicals and the research he did for the City of Medicine Hat. And I have all that downstairs, which I'll donate someday. And he was going to write the book about the history of Medicine Hat. Couldn't get enough of it. Was down at the archives a lot.
As Medicine Hat College comes close to celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2015, we had talked, in fact, Roy and I had even talked a little bit about the possibility, Roy, are you up for another book? And would you consider, because Roy was a historian by training.
Roy has taught as many as 3,000 education students alone. He felt teaching was one of the noblest professions and reiterated that to his students at the college. No matter where he was, Roy was always teaching.
We had 5 children in 6 years, so you could imagine. Absolutely insane. They would learn and they didn't even know they were being taught. So there was a totally different style, and frankly his was better. It was the same when it came to practicing, you know, their musical instruments, etc. He would sit down at the piano and play chopsticks with them to cut through the hardness of having to practice, because Mother was in the kitchen hollering at them, you know. So it was a huge learning experience. And now our grandchildren, and in the video there's a picture of him taking them over to the cliffs, and they're all following him, and he's teaching them about the history of the hat and why that happened. Just quietly going about teaching always. Even when he went to a school to visit, some schools would have him come in and talk about the history of Medicine Hat. He would be so animating teaching those children. They never forgot it.
Roy had described himself as being shy and an introvert. Although he was quiet, people felt his opinion mattered.
Roy didn't talk a lot at meetings, but when he said something, it was important, and he brought unique insight, and he asked some very soul-searching questions sometimes as a board member.
Roy has said in interviews he missed his calling as an actor. He was always curious of those around him.
He never talked about himself. If you met Roy for the first time, he'd be so busy asking you about yourself that you'd forget to ask him about himself. So, and that's how he liked it.
No one ever left the presence of Roy Wilson feeling worse than when he went into the presence of Roy Wilson. Even if he couldn't grant your wishes or give you always went out of his presence feeling that he listened, he cared, and you felt better.
The children, the students,
oh, I know,
because
yeah.
of course they have to as well do it for us. We can't write the exams for them. Right. We can't necessarily be up there performing for them. They're up there doing it for us and for everyone.
As a parent and teacher, Roy always kept children in mind when making decisions as a school board trustee.
I would guess, as a school board member, he would have brought those kinds of forward-thinking ideas to the table. Always remembering children come first. Always remembering to negotiations or anything, put the children first, that of course would aid the teachers then.
He would always come from a position of moral stability. It was important to him that we do the right thing. And for me, that was that unique quality. And many of us in my profession, we'll try and find the quickest or most direct route of getting there. And frequently, we're just not always right. But in Roy's case, he always insisted that we do the right thing.
Roy adored classical music. He dreamed of visiting all of the world's great opera houses. He listened to music while working and performed in choirs for years. Roy believed music was essential in schools.
I think one of his saddest moments was we had the strings program here for many years, and it became a little expensive for the school board to run. And I guess one of the most painful choices Roy had to make was to sit on a board that had to make the decision that they could no longer continue that program. The interesting thing is now we've started up partnerships, and I think Roy was very happy. I think, he was able to, before he left us, he was able to see the start up of the new partnerships we're building in music, how we're working with the college and the music conservatory there to rebuild some of the music program that we had lost. It's not quite as extensive as it had been, but we're on our way, and I think that was a very pleasing moment for Roy in the last year of his trusteeship.
Nothing could have been done that would have meant more to him than that Bring Back the Music program. So to thank the community for supporting that, we couldn't say enough thanks, believe me. And it will be a living and an ongoing thing that he'll always be remembered for. It was wonderful. So we'll make sure it continues.
While Roy is no longer with us, the memories he left with those he crossed paths with are everlasting.
When I think of Medicine Hat College, and a number of images rush through my mind, one of them, of course, is Roy Wilson walking down the hallway. He had a certain way of carrying himself, and frequently he would be whistling to himself. He had that presence about him, and it always lifted my spirits. It made me pleased to come to work. We lost a good man. We lost a good educator. We lost a great leader. And for me, I lost a major role model in my life and in my career. Legacy
Number one for Roy is that he cared about people, he cared about kids, and he felt so deeply about that he's brought all of us into that on our school board. He drilled that into us in a fashion that is the legacy that we will carry with us.
He was always there for me and with me, being my gopher, carrying boxes, doing this and that, campaigning with me, wanted me to succeed as much as he wanted himself. So in turn, we were helping each other all the time. It was an amazing partnership, and I miss that very much. And I think when you think of two powerhouses in the same household, and yet we never really crossed those bridges, but we assisted each other so much. Really, I am the most fortunate woman in the world.